Alrighty, going live here. Awesome. Okay, cool. We are live. Get people in here. Alrighty, cool. We will get started then. I'll start sharing my screen. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming to the student chapter of the Wildlife Society's general member meeting. Got some highlighted presentations today, so it should be fun. Alrighty, if you guys want to go out on projects this year, dues are $5 a semester or $8 a year. There's two ways to pay that. Through the online method, which is PayPal, using my highlighted email, or dropping off cash on Mondays from 10 to 2 for my office hour. And if you're using PayPal, make sure to use friends and family so you guys don't get that fee related to that. And then if you guys have any questions, you can let me know, Brian or Melinda. I'd be happy to help you.
All right, so along with dues, we have two other things that you need to fill out to go on projects. That's just a general membership form, just a Google form, and then a hold harmless form. I sent out an email with all this stuff in it a while ago, but you can just search it and find the PDF file for the hold harmless and just fill it out and send it back. You can even print it out and scan it and send it back, whatever works for you. Thanks.
Moving on here to Liz.
All right, we got a cheerful conservation topic today about a duck lemma in Iowa. So earlier in November, I think it was like November 11th or something, they found 200 or more ducks dead along a highway. And this is on the highway alone, like not counting other roads or like in the ditches beside the road. And a bunch of migrating ducks were hit by cars. And the reason for this is because they mistook the wet roads for wetlands, which is honestly very understandable because driving when it's raining and at night, I don't know if it happened at night, but it's just rough. But what happened was the cold Canadian weather drove the waterfowl south, but then when they encountered Iowa, is this mixed precipitation, so they had to land somewhere. And some of them just made a mistake and it cost them their lives. So this is a super unique situation, not really common, but just something we need to take into account when we're managing for wildlife. Just there is going to be freak situations that cost a lot of lives. So on a less sad note, well, one of them's not so sad, but let's see which one Nate's going to throw up first. All right. So with the right wind conditions, migrating mallards are capable of flying how many miles in an 8-hour time frame? Let's see how much you guys know your mallards.
All righty, couple more. 3, 2, 1. Ending it. Sharing the results.
Hey, you guys got it. Nobody fell for my 5 miles. That's good. Ducks can definitely fly more than 5 miles in 8 hours. But yeah, it's 800 is kind of like if they have a 50-mile-per-hour tailwind, they can fly up to 800 miles in 8 hours, which is insane. So for our second question, in January of 1999, a tornado and hailstorm left more than 3,000 dead waterfowl across a 7-mile stretch in which state?
Couple more. 3, 2, 1. Ending it. Sharing it.
Ooh, no one, I mean, a few of you got it, but the correct answer was Arkansas. It's not Nebraska.
Alrighty. Moving on. Oh, got a couple people in the waiting room here. Okay. Cool. Stop sharing. Thank you so much, Lizzie. Moving along. Oh, yeah, one more.
All right. So you guys, the brave few who are here today, get a sneak peek of our button this year. That is what Emily drew for us. Hingstrom riding a good old white-tailed deer. So with that being said, I need quote ideas. So like in the past, it was "In Riddle We Trust" or like "I like dead things." I don't remember the one for Sartini, but we need some sort of catchphrase or quote or something that would go along with Hingstrom. So if you have any ideas, email me. My email's on screen. And then I've also gotten a couple questions about apparel. So we are getting our apparel after Thanksgiving break. And for those of you who will be on campus, great, you can come pick it up in the office. After we talk about that, us officers, we'll figure out what times you can come and pick it up. But for those of you who will not be on campus in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, don't worry, we won't sell your apparel or anything. We will keep it safe in the office for you to pick up when you return. So there you go.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you, Lizzie. All right, guys. There's 2 spots left if you want to be a presenter in next week's meeting and highlight something that you did over the summer for work, any wildlife experience that you guys are doing outside of the university. We'd love to hear you talk about it. So 2 left for next week. It's a short little presentation, nothing serious. You'll see 3 today. So if you get inspired, let me know and we'll set you up. Thank you.
Okay, so if you guys have if any projects have any equipment that they need to buy, but they don't quite have enough funds, but you still have travel funds that you aren't planning on using, you can transfer those funds, but first you'll have to email me the amount that you'd want to travel or transfer so I can move that money. This request is going to be due on Monday, so we'll move a bunch of money then, and then hopefully we'll move some money in the spring as well if we need to. So if you have any questions, you can email me and let me know if you need to move any moolah.
Awesome. Thank you, Brylan.
Mm-hmm.
Mackenzie. I think she was having some
Can you
internet
guys
issues.
hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
I'm lagging a lot. I can't see it anymore.
You want me to take it over, Mackenzie? No worries if you are having some issues. She might be. I think she even might have left on us. Okay, I'll take this slide for her. Looks like she's having some internet issues. Okay, guys, so the Wisconsin state meeting is coming up on February 22nd through the 26th. It should be super cool. It's one of the anniversaries. I'm not actually sure which one, but a big one. So it should be super cool. You guys can present research at this. This is one of this is the smallest professional meeting that you can go to. So it's just Wisconsin people. It's a great place to start presenting research. A lot of people there that are there to help you and just give you constructive criticism or even just compliments, anything. It's an awesome place to start. So if you guys are interested, get those abstracts in. They're due on December 1st. And like I said, yep, this should be a super awesome thing that we got going on here. And we will be sponsoring a bunch of people. So make sure you apply for that. Awesome. Is Melina here?
Hi everyone. Senior Bible study won't be happening this week because of Thanksgiving, but we will be back after Thanksgiving break. So like you probably already heard, it's every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. There's the Zoom link. And we're going through like various topics from an animation studio called the Bible Project. It's really a good time to like discuss a lot of interesting topics and meet other natural resource majors. So if you're interested, come out.
Awesome. Thank you, Malene. Fisher Project, still looking for co-leaders. Got some applications in, but definitely looking to fill those 3 spots. So make sure you get those applications in. I sent them in an email. If you need it sent again, let me know. Our main goals on the slide here, I talked about it last meeting, so I'll just skip this in. And then those applications are due Sunday, November 29th, 11:59. That'll be a hard deadline. And if you have any questions, you can let me or any of my other co-leaders know. Thank you.
Hi everyone, the Waterfowl Project is still looking for co-leaders, but that deadline is closing soon. So that's closing on November 27th at midnight. So if you haven't applied yet and you want to, make sure you get that in before then. You can email it to Aiden or me, and our email is on the slide. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Waterfowl Project. Is Tommy here? Don't remember if he was going to make it today. Give him a sec. Don't think so. Okay, cool. So CNR Quiz Bowl is going to be December 2nd at 5 p.m. And we're setting up a team. So if you guys are interested, let me know. That's got to be put in by tomorrow. So I'm going to send out an email right after the meeting to make sure you got people that weren't at the meeting know as well. But we're going to have be represented as the Wildlife Society at the CNR Quiz Bowl. So if you want to be a part of that, should be a fun time. Let me know. Otherwise, you can email Tommy, myself, or even the CNR people are helping as well. So if any questions, let us know. Shelby or Nathan? For you guys here. I see Shelby. Do you want to take this one, Shelby? I think Nathan is having some struggles as well.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a social media scavenger hunt over winter break. And we're going to need some social media accounts to be used for like tagging purposes. So if you want your Instagram account to be featured, you can email either Nathan or me. And yeah, it should be pretty fun.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm excited to see how that turns out. Thanks, Shelby.
And then every Friday, we feature a wildlife photo taken by one of our members on our Instagram and Facebook page for what we call Fauna Friday. So if you have any cool wildlife photos you've taken recently or in the past, you can send them in by DMing our Instagram page or emailing me. And if you have any turkey photos, I would love those for this week, fitting for Thanksgiving. And then next slide. Then you can follow our student chapter on multiple platforms. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and add us on Snapchat. And if you ever miss a meeting, our meetings are recorded, and you can find those recordings on our website and our YouTube channel.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelby. Alrighty, so next week is going to be part 2 of our student job series, and that could be you. Do you want to be presenting next week? Let me know. But without further ado, this week we've got Danny, Amber, and Melinda talking to us about their summer experiences. So I will stop my share and I will hand it over to, I believe, Amber starting it off today. Cool.
This is a nice short one, lots of pictures. So it'll be easy to pay attention to if it wants to. Okay, so I had 2 great jobs this summer. I worked for the DNR and the Wildlife Discovery Center, so a tale of 2 jobs. So I had an internship at the Wildlife Discovery Center, which is located in Lake Forest, Illinois on the Middle Fork Savannah. So kind of like northeastern corner of the state. They have approximately 85 species on the property. So I took care of animals, but then I also did animal education. We have up here, we have a rhinoceros iguana named Flora. She was pretty great. She always liked to get her head rubs. If you were in the room and you weren't rubbing her in any way, she would like get really mad. This is a Blandings turtle. Her name is Zombie. She has one bad eye. Boris the bobcat. He's pretty great. And then we have some tortoises, owls. It's a pretty fun time. So skills and lessons I learned from this job was I learned animal husbandry. I also learned about animal education. I learned that you need lots of patience doing animal education. And then I also learned about the importance of ambassador animals. I had a mom come up to me when I was holding one of the ball pythons, and I had to be patient when she said that it would be a great purse. So that's where I learned that, you know, it's important for these animals to be seen in a non-purse atmosphere. And then my other job was a visitor services associate at Bigfoot Beach State Park, which is located in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's about 272 acres, so it's really a small park. So I did property maintenance as well as visitor management. So the great thing about working for this park was that there's a low amount of employees. So unlike the big parks like Peninsula and Devil's Lake, I got to do pretty much any job that I wanted to. I got to do lots of different maintenance. I got to work on some trees and stuff, like cleaning up after a couple of large storms. Then I also got to deal with the visitors, which I never knew how hard it was until 4th of July came around and no one had stickers on their vehicles. So that was fun. And then skills and lessons I learned for working for the DNR. I learned how to have some people skills because you got to talk to lots of different people with different attitudes. I learned that you need confidence, especially when you're driving the Ranger vehicle around. You need to act like you know exactly what's going on. I learned how to drive a UTV, which was absolutely amazing. And then I learned how to do general maintenance and tool operation, which was a lot of fun. So, how did I get a job like this? I stalked the DNR website starting in like right now. And I bugged the person who is in charge of the district in the Southeastern. And I was like, hey, I want a job. And he's like, oh, we don't have any openings right now. Well, I was like, well, let me know. And I emailed him like every month. And then eventually he's like, hey, here's an opening, apply for it. And I got the job. And then how I got the Wildlife Discovery Center was I could not find it. I didn't know it existed until I went to a map on Google Maps. And I zoomed in on one of these dark green areas and I saw the Wildlife Discovery Center on the Middle Fork Savannah. So I looked at the website and lo and behold, they had an internship and I applied for that as well. But I highly recommend doing that because you'll find a lot of things that you won't find anywhere else. Like the A&M job board, I couldn't find it on there. So fun ways. And then I have a couple more photos. I have a burn pile that was burning for most of the summer. It was kind of scary. And my vehicle of choice. And then two of the wonderful little creatures I got to hang out with as much as I wanted. So yeah, any questions? I will stop sharing if I can figure out how. Yeah, any questions? I want at least one question. Like one question from anyone.
What was your favorite animal that you worked with?
Honestly, there was this one ball python who was an absolute sweetheart, and she didn't know her size. And sometimes when you had her around her neck, she'd get a little too comfortable and start curling a little too much, but she was pretty fun. And then there's also there's foxes who I didn't get the pictures in here, but they were awesome. Foxes are literally cat dogs. Like, it's so fun.
I have a question. Oh, Will's got one first.
Ooh, what was the worst injury you got over the summer that was animal related? So it didn't end up being an injury, but we had a Komodo dragon who was having some real issues with her intestines, and she had a I can't think of what the word was, but she had an issue where she was, yeah, it was coming out, and it was the second time around because it happened early in the summer, and we had to get her to the emergency vet, and I was one of the only interns in there, and we had to get her into a box, and luckily she didn't lunge at anyone. She just got into the box and then stuck her head out, but it was right next to my arm, and you know, Komodo dragons, their saliva isn't the greatest, but nothing bad happened. And even if something bad happened, I wouldn't blame her. I mean, she was very uncomfortable. So, did you feed the animals? Yes, it was so fun. Favorite animal to feed was the turtle pond because there's like 40 plus turtles. So if you're holding a small bucket of mice cut in half, they all come running at you. Like, it's the weirdest feeling, just having turtles running at you. Wish I got a video, but it was cool.
Awesome. Okay, Amber, here's my question. So you said that you had to deal with some people, right? You had some 4th of July people not having stickers, right?
Yes.
What did you find the most helpful when you were dealing with the Karens of the world?
So the best thing to do is to sympathize for them and be like, yes, I know there's a lot of different things happening right now, because usually we sell dailies and we weren't selling dailies and people did not like that. So being like, oh, well, just so you know, your money does go to other great efforts of managing other animal populations. It helps with pretty much everything because, you know, but after they learned that, they didn't know that there's a lot of people down there that you don't usually see at other state parks. Like, it's so close to Chicago. We have so many people that go there and that's their time outside. So they were like, oh, we didn't know that was a thing. Like, how can we know more and stuff like that? So yeah, Katrina just said, yeah, it was stressful. I had a couple instances where it's like, I don't want to live through that again, but you learn, and you just learn how to like fake smile, sympathize, be like, yeah, know the rules next time, please. But yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Amber. Is there any more questions? If not, thank you so much for presenting today. And we are moving on to, I believe, Melinda, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Cool. Yes. A round of applause for Amber.
All right, so I did an internship this summer at Raptor Education Group up in Antigo. So I'm a wildlife major as well as a captive wildlife minor. So for the captive wildlife minor, you have to have an applicable internship to get the minor. And so this is what I did for my internship. So Reggie is a avian rehabilitation center in Antigo, Wisconsin. So I was a rehabilitation intern. There are also education positions. So I worked in rehab for 5 days out of the week, education in 1, and then we had 1 day off. Thank goodness. So normally the position is unpaid, but through the university you can get, there's one position for a rehab intern and one for an education intern to get paid through a generous donation through a scholarship. So that's what I had, which was really nice. And then I believe my application was due in December, but if you're a captive wildlife minor, Dr. Dubé will probably send out announcements when applications come out. I'm not sure what their plans are for next summer, but yeah. And similar to what Amber talked about with the turtles, so these are 2 of the pelicans that live at Reggie. This is Polly and Penny. And they get very excited when it's feeding time. So when you come with their big blue bowls of fish, they get very excited and they run up to you. If you ever get a chance to see a pelican running, it's hilarious because they just they wobble, especially Polly because he's missing a wing. So he's very lopsided when he runs and it's very amusing. I get very excited for their fish. So I also just have a bunch of pictures. of cool birds I got to see this summer and help take care of. So on the top, we've got a kingfisher there. I think he was hit by a car. Bottom left, we have an osprey. This was a young osprey. I think he fell out of his nest. So he was really skinny, so we had to force feed him fish for a while, but I think this guy got put back up into his nest once we fattened him up a bit. And then on the right is a young eagle that I think also fell out of their nest. And there were a lot of baby owls there this summer. I think there were about 10 baby great horned owls. And so we had to periodically weigh them all. So that involved capturing all of them, wrapping them in towels and weighing them, which was quite the process. We didn't get to help catch the owls because that's a little dangerous. So the staff would catch the owls and hand them off to us, but then we got to hold them and that was fun. And they're very cute and angry and they clap their little beaks at you. And then we also had some waterfowl. Here's some baby swans. The big one in the back is one of the resident swans at Reggie, and he's a foster parent. So Reggie uses a lot of foster parents to help make sure that when the babies grow up, they know how to be birds and they don't think they're people. So these baby swans were really fun to watch grow up, and they're very fluffy. Baby swans are adorable. But Papa Swan in the back there would get very angry when you came in to try to change their food bowls, because you've probably been hissed at by a goose, but getting hissed at by a swan is a whole nother story because they come up like past your waist. And then there were also just a lot of baby songbirds. This summer was crazy. Reggie surpassed over 1,000 intakes this year, which is way over previous numbers. So here's some of the baby birds I had to feed every hour. So there's a cedar waxwing on the left. Those guys are always begging for food. A little handful of wrens in the top middle there. Little baby red-eyed vireo in the bottom. He's very cute, loved him. And then we also had a bunch of blue jays, like the one in the top right. They've got personality to them, love them too. And then some more bird pictures. We got some chimney swifts on the left, baby green heron in the bottom middle, and a bunch of turkeys. The turkeys were great. We had like 13 of them in a mew, and this was them learning how to roost. It was very cute. And then after we raised them all up and got them better, we got to release them. So that was one of the best parts of the job. Like there's a lot of really hard parts in rehab, and there just is. It's hard. It's a hard job, but then it's all worth it when you get to see them released. So that was always a highlight. We always got really excited when it was a release day. And if any of you have been out on the Woodcock project, you might recognize the guy on the left. And then the guy in a Reggie shirt on the left, his name is Sam Lau. He graduated from Point a few years ago, and he was a co-leader for the Woodcock project. So we called up this guy and was like, hey, you want to come band these baby woodcocks that we have before we release them? So you might be able to see him right there, just a little baby woodcock getting his beak measured. So that was fun. And so I also worked a bit in education, and there was some tie-ins between the education and the rehab. So on the left, we have Tilly when she came into the clinic just as a little baby, and she had some poisoning issues, and she wasn't releasable. So we trained her up, and now she's going to be a fantastic educational ambassador. So that's her on the right, all grown up. Well, not quite. You can still see she's got some of her little baby yellow feathers on her belly, but she was super cute. And then this is Raymond. He's a sharp-shinned hawk. He also came in as a baby. And since sharp-shinned hawks are pretty rare in rehab centers, there wasn't really a foster for him. So we didn't have anyone to help him learn how to be a sharp-shinned hawk. So he got imprinted on people and isn't releasable. But he's a cutie, and he would just sit on the table in the clinic and kind of stare at you and pick apart his mice. It was very cute. And so here's just some more of the education birds. There's Pilchard the turkey vulture on the left, and Ruby the red-shouldered hawk on the right. All fantastic birds. They've all got such unique personalities. That was one of my favorite parts, is just learning all of their different quirks and what they like and what they really don't. So like a lot of the birds you can kind of baby talk to, but Ruby would not have any of that. If you talk to her in like a high-pitched voice, she would just get real upset. So you had to keep your voice nice and low talking to Ruby, or she'd get upset. And she was very vocal when she got upset. Red-shouldered hawks are quite talkative. And then this is a video that I took this summer of a little baby crane that we got because I think the mom had gotten hit on the side of the road. And so the baby was found, and she came to us. She had some head trauma and stuff. So she wasn't releasable. And we had to walk her about 2 miles every day. So that's her on the left. And then on the right is her at the end of the summer, being very confused by the adult sandhill cranes that live at Reggie, because she was imprinted. She didn't think she was a crane. So this was just very confusing for her. They were doing a lot of screaming, as cranes do. So I learned a lot at Reggie. It's really hard, but it's also, I learned so much, just animal care, and there's a lot of food prep. If you're squeamish, this is probably not the job for you, because raptors, they eat meat. And so there's a lot of gutting of various small animals. If that's not your thing, this is probably not the job for you. But I loved working just so closely with the animals and watching them get better, and just building relationships with them was just really fantastic. So I think that's all I've got, but if anybody has any questions.
How long was the internship, and will it work with Tree Haven?
It was the whole summer, so it doesn't work with Tree Haven. You really got to be there the whole summer. I think it was like end of May to early August.
What were the requirements for you to get the gig?
I didn't have any really animal care or anything background. They teach you everything you got to know. Yeah, I mean, I've done Linwood, I've done some sawwood owl banding, but other than that, I had very minimal experience.
No projects with TWS or anything? They were like, they just figured you're in the program, so they'd let you on.
I mean, I'm not sure why they picked me. But I have participated in a lot of TWS programs. So those, I mean, TWS projects are great for getting experience in all sorts of things. And the raptor handling from sawwood owl banding was really helpful for this.
Thank you.
And looks like people have questions about the food. So they don't raise their own food. It's a lot of donations, and then also just purchases from their supply companies that will just give you a whole bunch of dead frozen rats. And we didn't have to kill any of the animals. They all came in pre-dead. But it is hunting season. So if anybody is looking to do something with old venison or deer hearts, as long as there's no chance of lead in them, you can donate them to Reggie. Always looking for more meat.
Alrighty. Any other questions? Otherwise, I have one. So you guys said that you got a lot of like songbirds and things. So for a rehab facilities, a lot of the time it's people not knowing that the animal's okay. They bring it in like, oh, a fawn by itself, you know, mothers will drop them off. Do you see that with birds as well? That people are just taking them out of places they were supposed to be?
So people usually call first. They'll see a bird in their yard that looks hurt, and they'll call and be like, is this bird hurt? Do I need to bring it in? How do I do that? But a lot of times people call and it's like a fledgling robin or something that's just learning how to fly, and people are always concerned that they're on the ground and not flying, but that's just what fledgling birds do. So we usually tell them, just leave them alone, make sure there's no cats in the area, but yeah.
Alrighty, awesome, thank you. Any last questions? Otherwise, round of applause. Thank you so much, Melinda. I'll clap so you guys can hear it and make your claps be heard. Okay, cool. Alrighty, one more presentation. We got Danny. You are a co-host, so you should be good to go to share your screen.
Oh, this is not the right tab. How do I can't. No, not that. There we go. Okay. With like the co-host, there's just like a bunch of things at the bottom. All right. So this summer I was supposed to be a TA at Tree Haven, but that didn't work out. So Dr. Riddle approached me about a research position that was open. And it was through the National Ecological Observation Network, which is called NEON. and they contract it through the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies. It gets contracted to UWSP. So it is solely Dr. Riddle conducting the research, and then he usually has two student researchers help him. It was Rose Arnold and I this summer, if you know her. So it was up in Tomahawk, Wisconsin, and Land O'Lakes. If you guys recognize this bird, it's one of the ospreys from Tree Haven. So I've got just a little map of where it was. So these little circles, this was the Land O'Lakes location, and then this was where we went to when we stayed in Tomahawk. It's part of the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest called Steigerwald. And so we got to stay at Tree Haven for our first week. And this is where Dr. Riddle trained us on the points, and we learned how to conduct the research. They were all point count surveys, which are fairly simple surveys, but NEON is a national organization that conducts research all over the US, and they do plants and mammals and insects and birds, and it's all very standardized. So for point count surveys, they are pretty intensive, and I'll go into that in a little bit about like how we conducted the surveys. But NEON is really cool because their goal is to see how climate change is affecting bird distribution throughout the US. So, it's an ugly picture of the map that we used at Steigerwald. So this is up in Chequamegon-Nicolet, up by Phillips, Wisconsin. So that first, like the big circle. And if you look kind of closely, there's little grids. So this is how they were conducted. We have 3x3 grids, and those are entered into GPS units. And we would get to those by the roads that you see in red, and then we'd walk to our points using compasses, and then the middle point of each grid had a PVC pipe. And because NEON does a bunch of other research, we had to make sure that it was our pipe and not for, say, the insect collection. And it was always fun to have a middle point because then you knew you were exactly on the plot and exactly where you needed to be to listen for the birds. And then we are also up at Underk. So this was where we were in Land O'Lakes. It's the University of Notre Dame's Environmental Research Center. So we got to stay right in the middle, right here. There are some dorms, and Rose and I saw some, not monks, like priests running and biking sometimes because they didn't really have much else to do because they couldn't hold summer classes like usual. This black line is the border of Wisconsin to the south and then Michigan to the north. So we got to travel for that one. And then this is just a picture I took on the property during one of my last point counts. Some of the adjacent property was owned by the Nature Conservancy, and it's just a ton of lakes. Like the name says, it's Land O'Lakes up there. So it's really cool. I don't know if any of you guys are from there, but if you haven't been up in the super lakey area, it's gorgeous. So back to like what I did with the birds. I didn't always interact like directly with the birds, so that I wasn't really, I guess, I was observing the birds is what I would say for the research. So this is a picture of one of our data sheets, and this is what we carried with us in our backpacks. We had first aid kits. We had, I had a hatchet. Rose had a machete because there are bears up there, and unruly people. We didn't encounter any, thankfully, but we're in the middle of the woods. During the interview, Dr. Riddle actually asked us, like, are you okay being alone in the middle of the woods in the morning when it's still pretty dark out? And yeah, so we did that. But as I said earlier, the data collection had a very strict protocol because it's so standardized. And we researched from 30 minutes before sunrise until 5 hours after, because that's when the birds are most active. And if I didn't say this before, it was in June, so during the breeding season for songbirds. And all of our surveys were 6-minute surveys divided into 1-minute sections. So we would listen for 1 minute, record what we heard or saw during that minute, and then the next minute it would kind of reset. So if you heard a bird the first minute, you wouldn't record it the second minute, but you'd record everything you heard. So you just have to kind of discern, is it the same bird I'm hearing or is it a different one? So if they're like both coming from directly right and directly left, it might be the same bird because people don't have really good directional hearing. Like I said, we had a GPS and a compass to get us to the points, and they were grids in our 2 plots, but Tree Haven has some plots too that Dr. Riddle surveys, and those are just points. So to start off this position, we had to take a bird quiz to make sure that we actually knew our calls and our songs and know them by sight. So I'm going to kind of show you that because I think it's a really cool resource that we got to use. So they are neon quizzes, and then ours were like Steigerwald, and it knows my info already because I took this about 100 times probably beforehand. So in order to get us ready for this research, we had to know what the birds were. So like this is an eastern kingbird, and then you just say it, it says correct. And then you could listen to some of them. So I don't know if you can hear that, but it's a crow. And then you just go through this. There's 50 questions, and we had to take that until we passed it. There we go. Okay. A little bit more on the data collection. We had to write down a lot of information. So we started off with the date written in a very specific way, our name, the site ID. So this was one of like my practice ones at Tree Haven. Our other sites were STEI, and then UNDE for Steigerwald, and then Underk. And then at the beginning of the day, we had a special piece of equipment called a kestrel that read the relative humidity and the temperature, and then the wind speed. So we would by sight say about how much cloud cover there was, and then with the kestrel we would record the relative humidity at the beginning and the end of the day. And when we were actually doing the counts, so we would get to the site, we'd wait, we'd let it settle for about a minute, 2 minutes while we got all our equipment out, our pencil, our data sheet, our timer, and then we would take down the time in 24-hour time, we take down the temperature in Celsius, we take down the wind in kilometers per hour with the little kestrel that we have to hold and like turn it around and stuff. It looked like a little fan. And then we had, as I said, the 6 1-minute listening periods. We'd use our ears, our eyes, and then we had a little rangefinder that was a laser that we would point at like the nearest tree to where we thought that bird was. So as you can see, like this first minute, NOBI means no bird. Each species had a 4-letter code to correspond to it. So AMRO is American robin. It's like the first 2 letters of each of the names, or if it was like a Veery, then it would be VEER because it's just a short name. And we would record how we heard it. So S is song, C would be for call, V would be visual. And then if there was a visual, we'd check it. And if we could determine the sex, we'd say M or F for female or male, or a J for juvenile, because sometimes you can't tell. And then if we saw, say, 3 birds in one spot, then we would have a cluster of 3, and then you'd have a code if you had multiple clusters. So there was a lot to go with the data collection, but I think almost all studies have a lot to go with data collection because more information is always better than less. So that's how we took the data. But we had to get out to all our sites. So we had to wear the appropriate fashions. This is one of the first pictures I took when I was out there, excuse me. We had a safari cap and a mosquito net. The mosquito net was an absolute necessity because the mosquitoes were horrible up there. After one day, my legs looked like absolute, just like huge welts, chicken pox, but apparently it wasn't a bad year and the black flies went out, so that was good. We also had binoculars in case we needed to see a bird far away if we could pull them out fast enough. Walkie-talkie was necessary because Rose and I were constantly communicating, and then Dr. Riddle if we had questions or if we needed to let each other know where we were, because we don't want to sample the same points and we want to make sure that all of the points are sampled. We wore raincoats usually because it's really dewy in the morning and it's kind of cold in the morning, so I always had like thick leggings, short sleeve shirt, raincoat, net always, and rain boots because all of the terrain is really iffy up there. So you can go from the top of the hill to a tag alder swamp at the bottom of the hill, like just 250 meters away. They're completely different, and I had to walk through that tag alder swamp, and it took me 40 minutes to walk like 400 feet, and it was horrible. We did wear masks because we were traveling together and sometimes we were in close proximity, and our bug spray was the perfume. I used 100% DEET and it did not help. I don't like using DEET, but I thought it would help, but it just melted my leggings instead. So the fun part of my summer was everything that I got to see after and during when I worked. So the lupins, those were, all three of these pictures were taken at Tree Haven because that's where we stayed. So we worked from about 3:30 or 4 in the morning until maybe 9 or 10, just because we did have about an hour drive each time, except for when we were at the Notre Dame Center. That was really close. So rest of the day was for me to explore. So I'm really thankful that I got to see Tree Haven, even though I didn't get to attend it. So I got to see some snapping turtles laying eggs, some cool spiders. There's a little skipper on my compass when I was waiting one day. And then, like I said, the habitats up there are so unique. There were some cedar bogs, just gorgeous swamp, not the most fun to walk through, like moss up to your knees, but it was just absolutely stunning to see the pink lady slipper orchids, the yellow lady slipper orchids, blue flag irises. I think that, yeah, this next picture I got to see pitcher plants in their native habitat. So the birds were amazing to hear and to see. We mostly heard them, but the rest of the atmosphere and the nature was irreplaceable. Like I could never see a pitcher plant where I'm from down in Illinois. So it was great. And this was taken at 5:36 a.m. Like I said, they were early mornings, so that's why it's such a blurry picture. I had my hand out with my phone and instantly like 10 mosquitoes on my hand. This nest on the left was right next to the pitcher plant and I almost stepped on it. Then in the middle, those are trumpeter swans. So I got to see those during one of my plots when I was doing a survey. So I got to mark down a little 3 cluster, and there was 2 adults and 1 cygnet. So that was really cool. And then an eagle flew over, so I got to mark a visual, and those are pretty rare with this type of survey. So that was really fun. And then one day when we were walking out of a plot, we scared up an ovenbird and got to see an ovenbird nest. So that was really unique as well. Rose and I went on a walk at Tree Haven and called some chestnut-sided warblers in, and their song is "Pleased, Pleased, Pleased to Meet Ya," and it's a really diagnostic song, and I'm never gonna forget it, and I'll probably never forget any of these bird songs. And I got a really neat picture because warblers you usually don't get to see. So the research side was really fun because I got to learn protocol and point count methods, and I got to learn how to navigate my way through the woods with only a GPS and a compass. And I also got to see things that I would never see if I was just in an office all day. And then this one's kind of hard to see. It's a white-throated sparrow, and this one was my favorite. So I'm gonna take you to the song. This one, it's really eerie to hear, but it's a gorgeous sound. And this was almost every morning when we were at our second site. And just like when the sun is rising and you hear this, you feel like you're in a movie. So I'll play it for you. Hopefully it'll play. So it's a really pretty, like, whistly tune, and it just resonates through the woods. It's a gorgeous noise. So these are some of the views I got. These two diagonal. I was on top of a hill where a microburst had hit, and I was trying to get through all these fallen logs, and then my radio died, as well as my GPS ran out of, the signal wasn't working. So I was trying to walkie Riddle and Rose, and I couldn't, and I didn't know where my next point was. So I just kind of kept walking. And then my next point was actually right here. And I got to it without my GPS somehow. And it was really cool. It was like a sedge meadow into this big lake. And then there were some really unique habitats that were kind of deciduous / mixed forest, swamps, bogs that were really gorgeous to see. And then I got to see a little ruby-throated hummingbird, got a little picture of it. And the not so fun part were all the ticks. I think I had 2 on me this whole summer, but Rose was not as lucky. She had this many plus some that we flushed down the toilet after one walk in Tree Haven. So that was something we always had to watch out for. Luckily, there were no Lone Star ticks, and we got all of them off before they latched on. We did get stuck in the mud at one point because it had just rained and we went down a logging trail, so we had to be careful about that. And then just the mosquitoes, they were horrible. And our first day that we were out there, we were in Chequamegon, and Rose radioed that she saw a bear. And we were like, oh, that's fun, because we were like 500 meters apart. So I wasn't near her. I could talk to her, but she was pretty scared. And then about 15 minutes later, when I got to a different point, I saw the bear. It was about 100 feet away from me. It was like 600 pounds, and it was just this big boy. And I started yelling at it, and it ran away. Thankfully, at least it wasn't a female with a baby. And then the last day we were at Chequamegon, I got to walk up on a ruffed grouse nest, and I've never seen a ruffed grouse before. We don't really have them by me. I've never heard one before. And this little like woods chicken came screaming at me. It sounded like a cat that was being skinned, and it just like, I have a video of the noise, but it was like, meh! And it was just like hissing at me, and it came running at me, and I almost peed my pants because it scared me more than that bear did, because it's a fearless little thing. But it was fun. And our last day, I had this gorgeous view kind of on the side of a hill, and there's a white-throated sparrow off on this side calling to one right here, and I could just see the sunrise, and it was really sad, but it was a great experience minus the mosquitoes and the ruffed grouse, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Oh, this was a video I had of us playing around at Tree Haven. I'm gonna turn this sound down because, yeah. So we had a lot of free time, so we were exploring Tree Haven, and I went and I tried to walk on the dock, and I slipped, and I didn't fall in, but that was just a funny video because we had so much free time, which is not really what you would have with a research job. So this one was kind of unique because you can only research in the morning. And okay, so this was also a gorgeous view I had. It was just this little field in the middle of the woods, and there were some like potholes with like 5 feet of water. So it was really cool habitat that I got to see. So now, after I talked about all that, does anybody have any questions? I did get to hear the ruffed grouse's drum. So we heard them, Dr. Ill and I heard them when we were out doing some tree haven points. And then I heard, I think, 3 others on different grids. I heard one at Shawamigan, and I was in this like shrubland area, and I scared it up and it flew away. So I had heard it. I kind of like walked towards it because that was where my next grid was. And it was really cool because you kind of like, you feel it in your chest before you hear it. So it was a really cool experience hearing and seeing some birds that you would never see in any other kind of job, I guess. But yeah, does anybody else have any questions?
All righty. If not, thank you so much, Danny. That was awesome. Well, cool. All right. Thank you guys for sticking around. Yep. Round of applause. I always love seeing what everybody's up to and letting you guys showcase your work. So thank you guys, all 3 of you, for presenting. And maybe some of you are going to be presenting next week. Okay, I'm going to stick around if you guys have questions for me. But other than that, that is going to be it for this meeting. Have a good break. Happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you next week.